You're just a stepfather. Those 5 words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest right there in front of everyone at her wedding. After 9 hours on a cramped bus, after 15 years of raising her as my own, after sacrificing everything I had, that's what I got. But let me start from the beginning of that day, because what happened next changed everything between us forever. I remember waking up at 4 a.m. with my stomach in knots. The bus ticket was sitting on my nightstand, a crumpled piece of paper that represented my last desperate attempt to be the father she apparently never wanted. Sarah's wedding was happening whether I was invited or not, and I'd be damned if I missed the most important day of my daughter's life. The thing is, I wasn't supposed to be there. The invitation never came. For weeks, I kept checking the mailbox like some lovesick teenager, hoping for that elegant envelope with my name on it. Nothing. Her mother, my ex-wife Linda, had made it crystal clear during our last phone call. David, you need to understand your place in all this. My place. As if 15 years of scraped knees, homework battles, and teenage heartbreaks could be reduced to a place. The Greyhound station at dawn smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. I clutched my overnight bag, feeling every one of my 52 years in my aching back. 9 hours to Chicago. 9 hours to crash a wedding where I wasn't wanted. 9 hours to face the truth I'd been avoiding for months. As the bus pulled away from the station, I pressed my face against the cold window and watched my small town disappear. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was running toward the very person who was running away from me. Mile after mile, I replayed every birthday party I'd organized, every soccer game I'd attended, every time I'd held Sarah while she cried about some boy who'd broken her teenage heart. I was the one who taught her to drive, who walked her through her first job interview, who stayed up all night when she had pneumonia at age 12. But genetics, apparently, trumped everything. The bus made a stop in Indianapolis, and I watched a father help his young daughter climb the steps, her small hand completely trusting in his. That should have been me and Sarah once. That was me and Sarah once. Before she learned the difference between a real dad and whatever I was supposed to be. My phone buzzed, a text from my neighbor. Good luck today, David. She's lucky to have you. If only Sarah saw it that way. As we crossed into Illinois, something started building inside my chest. Not excitement, but a cold determination I'd never felt before. I was done begging for scraps of affection from someone I'd given everything to. Done apologizing for loving her when her biological father had walked away without a backward glance. The Chicago skyline appeared in the distance like a gray wall of judgment. In 2 hours, I'd be standing at the back of a church where I didn't belong, watching the girl I'd raised become a woman who wanted nothing to do with me. But I had something she didn't know about. Something that would change everything about this day, and about us. Something that would finally show her, and everyone else, exactly what kind of man she was throwing away. The bus lurched to a stop at Union Station, and I stood up on shaking legs. Time to find out if 15 years of love meant anything at all, or if I was truly just a stepfather after all. The Cathedral of St. Matthew stood before me like a fortress I wasn't supposed to breach. Its Gothic spires pierced the October sky, and I could hear the faint sound of an organ warming up inside. My hands were trembling, not from the Chicago cold, but from something much deeper. I'd made it. After 9 hours of hell on wheels, I was actually here. But standing there on the church steps, reality hit me like a slap. I wasn't dressed for this. My best suit was 10 years old, bought for a job interview that never led anywhere. Around me, elegantly dressed guests glided up the marble steps in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Sarah's new world. A world that apparently had no room for a small-town mechanic who'd raised her. I pulled out my phone and did something I swore I wouldn't do. I called Linda. David? David, what are you? Her voice was sharp, panicked. I'm here, Linda. At the church. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, you can't be here. We talked about this. No, you talked. I listened. There's a difference. David, please. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sarah is stressed enough as it is. Stressed? About what? About the possibility that the man who'd sacrificed everything for her might actually show up to celebrate the biggest day of her life? I raised her, Linda. I earned the right to be here. You need to leave. Now. Before anyone sees you. But it was too late. Through the church's open doors, I spotted him. James, Sarah's biological father. The man who'd walked out when she was 5 and reappeared like some conquering hero 2 years ago, with his investment banker salary and his new wife's connections. He was shaking hands with the wedding party, laughing like he belonged there. Like he'd earned his place. My chest burned with something I couldn't name. Here was the man who'd missed every school play, every fever, every heartbreak, and somehow, he got to walk her down the aisle while I sat at home, uninvited. David? David, are you still there? I hung up. I wasn't leaving. Not when I'd come this far. I slipped through a side entrance, hoping to find a seat in the back where I could watch without causing a scene. The cathedral was magnificent, stained glass windows casting rainbow patterns across marble floors, white roses everywhere, soft classical music floating through the air. Everything perfect. Everything expensive. Everything paid for by people who weren't me. That's when I saw her. Sarah, my little girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms, who made me Father's Day cards with crayon drawings of us fishing together. She was in the bride's preparation room, visible through a partially open door. She was absolutely breathtaking. The wedding dress, which I'd heard cost more than my car, made her look like something from a fairy tale. Her dark hair was swept up in an elaborate style I'd never seen before, and she was laughing at something her maid of honor said. For a moment, I forgot about everything else. I forgot about the uninvitation, about James, about Linda's coldness. I just saw my daughter on her wedding day, radiant and happy, and my heart swelled with the same pride I'd felt at her high school graduation. But then reality crashed back down. I wasn't supposed to be seeing this moment. I was an intruder in my own daughter's life. A hand landed heavy on my shoulder. "Excuse me, sir. Can I help you?" I turned to find a young man in a dark suit, clearly security or a wedding coordinator. His smile was polite, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, I noticed Linda approaching with quick, urgent steps. The words stuck in my throat. What was I? Sarah's father? Her stepfather? Some guy who used to matter? He was just leaving, Linda said, reaching us with her face flushed and anxious. Weren't you, David? The young man looked between us, confusion flickering across his features. I could see him trying to piece together this awkward family drama playing out in his perfectly organized wedding. But I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Not when I'd traveled so far and sacrificed so much just to be here. I straightened my shoulders and looked the coordinator in the eye. I'm David Morrison. Sarah's. I paused, the weight of that word hanging between us. Father. I raised her for 15 years. The man's expression softened slightly, but Linda stepped forward quickly. David, please. We've been through this. You're not on the guest list because... Because what, Linda? Because I'm not her real father? Because I'm just the guy who changed her diapers and helped with her homework and held her when she cried? People were starting to stare. A few guests had stopped their conversations to watch our whispered argument unfold. This wasn't how I'd wanted this to go, but something inside me was breaking open and I couldn't stop it. You know what I did this week, Linda? I worked 60 hours of overtime to save up for a wedding gift. For a daughter who couldn't even be bothered to invite me to watch her get married. Linda's face went pale. The coordinator shifted uncomfortably. What wedding gift? She asked quietly. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Something that might change Sarah's perspective on a few things. Something she should probably know before she says I do. The wedding coordinator excused himself quickly, clearly wanting no part of whatever family drama was about to unfold. Linda grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my sleeve. David. What are you talking about? What gift? Before I could answer, I heard a voice that made my blood run cold. Well. Look what the cat dragged in. James Morrison, Sarah's biological father, approached us with that smug smile I'd grown to hate over the past 2 years. In his expensive tuxedo, he looked every inch the successful father of the bride. The father who'd earned his place through DNA rather than devotion. James. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. Didn't expect to see you here, David. I thought we'd made it clear this was a family-only affair. Family only. The words hit me like a physical blow. 15 years of being Sarah's father, and I still wasn't family. Funny thing about family, James, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I always thought it was about who showed up, not who showed up in a lab test. His smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Look, I appreciate everything you did while I was, getting my life together. But Sarah's a grown woman now. She's made her choices about who she wants in her life. Has she? I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the envelope there. The envelope that contained everything James didn't want anyone to know, because I'm not sure she's been given all the information she needs to make that choice. Linda's grip on my arm tightened. David, don't. But James stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, the bride's room door opened wider, and Sarah emerged in her full wedding glory. She was adjusting her veil, laughing at something someone had said when her eyes found us. The laughter died on her lips. For a heartbeat, time stopped. I saw recognition flicker across her face, followed quickly by something that looked like panic. This wasn't how she'd wanted to see me again, not here, not today. Dad, she said, but she was looking at James, not me. The word hit me like a sledgehammer. Dad, not David, not even stepfather, just nothing. James immediately moved to her side, playing the protective father. It's okay, sweetheart. David was just leaving, but Sarah's eyes had found mine, and I saw something there I hadn't expected. Guilt. Deep, crushing guilt that she was trying desperately to hide behind her bridal makeup. David, she said softly, I didn't expect to see me at your wedding? Yeah, I got that message loud and clear. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Don't worry, I wouldn't want to upset your real family. That's not, she started, but James cut her off. Sarah, you don't need this stress today. David understands. Don't you, David? I looked at this man who'd waltzed back into Sarah's life with his checkbook and his connections, erasing 15 years of my fatherhood like it had never happened. Then I looked at Sarah, beautiful and conflicted and standing at the crossroads between her past and her future. Actually, James, there's something Sarah should know before she makes any more decisions about family. David, please, Linda hissed. Not here. Not today. But I was done being silent. Done being the convenient father who could be discarded when someone better came along. I pulled the envelope from my pocket and I saw James's face go white. You know what this is, don't you, James? He took a step back, his confident smile finally cracking. You don't know what you're doing, don't I? I held the envelope up, noting how James's eyes tracked it like a predator watching prey. Sarah, honey, did your biological father ever tell you why he really left when you were 5? David, stop, James said, his voice sharp with panic. But Sarah stepped forward, her wedding dress rustling against the marble floor. What are you talking about? I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who'd come to me for advice about boys, the young woman who'd called me crying when she failed her first college exam. When had I lost her? When had I become expendable? Your father, I said, emphasizing the word, likes to tell people he left because he wasn't ready for responsibility, that he was young and scared and needed to find himself. David, James warned, but his voice was shaking now. But the truth is, in this envelope, Sarah, the real reason he abandoned you and your mother, the real reason he stayed away for 18 years, and the real reason he suddenly came back into your life just in time to walk you down the aisle and play the reformed father. Sarah's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. Around us, wedding guests were starting to notice the commotion. Her maid of honor appeared at her shoulder, whispering urgently in her ear. What's in the envelope? Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. James lunged for it, but I stepped back smoothly. Why don't you ask him, sweetheart? Ask your dad why he really left. Ask him what he was running from. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. I could hear my own heartbeat, could smell Sarah's perfume, could feel the weight of 15 years of love and sacrifice pressing down on my shoulders. This was it. The moment that would either vindicate everything I'd given up for this girl, or destroy whatever microscopic chance I had of remaining in her life. Sarah turned to James, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before when she looked at him. Doubt. "Dad?" she said again, but this time it sounded like a question. James's face went from confident to desperate in seconds. He knew exactly what was in that envelope, and the terror in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Sarah, sweetheart," he stammered, "let's not let David ruin your special day with old grudges." "What's in the envelope, David?" Sarah's voice cut through his excuses like a blade. For the first time in 2 years, she was really looking at me. I saw something I'd almost forgotten, the same trust she'd shown me when she was 12 and scared about middle school, when she was 16 and heartbroken over her first boyfriend. I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately, watching James flinch with every movement. Inside were documents I'd spent weeks tracking down through old contacts and public records. Documents that painted a very different picture of James Morrison. "Your father didn't leave because he was young and irresponsible, Sarah. He left because he was stealing from his employer, a children's charity. And the FBI was closing in." The words hung in the cathedral air like poison. Sarah's bouquet trembled in her hands. "That's not—" James started, but I continued, my voice steady and clear. "He fled to Mexico with $43,000 meant for underprivileged kids. Stayed there for 5 years until the statute of limitations ran out." I pulled out the first document, an FBI warrant from 1994. "The charity was called Little Angels," I said, watching her face. "Remember your piggy bank with their logo? You saved allowance for 3 years and donated $57 to help kids who didn't have daddies." The irony hit her like a physical blow. That's when she broke. I watched my daughter, because that's what she was, DNA be damned, crumple like someone had cut her strings. White roses scattered across the marble floor like broken promises. "You stole from the charity I donated to?" Her voice was barely a whisper. James reached for her desperately. "Sarah, baby, that was a lifetime ago. I was different then. You let me donate my allowance to a charity you robbed?" The raw betrayal in her voice made my chest ache. This wasn't how I'd wanted this revelation to unfold. I'd wanted justice, vindication, recognition of my worth as her father. But watching her heart shatter in real time made me realize some victories cost everything. Then she whirled on me with fury I'd never seen before. "And you? How long have you known about this?" 3 weeks. I hired a private investigator when your father suddenly reappeared after 18 years. 3 weeks? Her voice was rising, drawing stares from wedding guests. "You've known for 3 weeks and waited until my wedding day?" The ground shifted beneath my feet. This wasn't going as planned. She was supposed to see James for what he really was, supposed to realize who had truly been there for her. "You wanted to ruin my wedding!" she screamed, mascara starting to streak despite the expensive makeup. "You couldn't stand that I chose him over you, so you decided to destroy the most important day of my life." "Sarah, that's not—" "Yes, it is." She stepped closer, and I could see the hurt and rage warring in her eyes. "You're jealous. You're bitter. And you're cruel enough to wait until today because you knew it would hurt the most." I opened my mouth to defend myself, to explain that I'd only wanted her to know the truth, but before I could speak, she delivered the killing blow. "You want to know the truth, David? The truth is you're not my father. You never were. You're just a stepfather who can't accept that his time is over." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the wedding guests who'd been pretending not to listen went completely still. I felt something inside my chest crack and crumble, like a dam finally giving way. Just a stepfather. After 15 years of scraped knees and homework battles and midnight fever watches and college tuition payments and unconditional love, I was just a stepfather. I looked at Sarah, at this woman I'd raised, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The desperate need for her approval, the aching desire for her love, the pathetic hope that she might one day call me Dad. All of it just stopped. Like a switch had been flipped, the pain transformed into something else. Clarity. Cold, perfect clarity. I folded the papers with steady hands and slipped them back into the envelope. When I looked up, my voice was calm as winter steel. You're absolutely right, Sarah. I'm not your father. I never was. I paused, letting the words settle. I was just the man who loved you when no one else would. I turned to walk away, my spine straight and shoulders back. Then I stopped and looked back one final time. Enjoy your wedding. Both of you. The click of my footsteps on marble echoed through the cathedral like a closing door. The October air hit my face like a baptism as I stepped out of that cathedral. For the first time in 15 years, I felt free. Not the hollow freedom of loss, but the profound liberation of a man who'd finally stopped begging for scraps of love from someone who'd already made her choice. Behind me, I could hear the muffled chaos of a wedding in crisis. Raised voices, frantic whispers, the rustle of expensive fabric as people tried to salvage what was left of Sarah's perfect day. But those sounds were fading with every step I took down Michigan Avenue. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. David, please come back. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. 3 blocks from the cathedral, I found a small coffee shop and sat by the window. My reflection stared back at me. A 52-year-old man in a worn suit who'd just walked away from his daughter's wedding. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful. The barista, a young woman with kind eyes, brought me coffee I hadn't ordered. You look like you need this, she said with a gentle smile. Rough day? Something like that. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, but maybe not as rough as I thought. She nodded, understanding, and moved away, giving me space with my thoughts. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old photos of Sarah and me. Her first day of kindergarten, both of us nervous and excited. Teaching her to ride a bike in the park. High school graduation, her arms around my neck as she whispered, "Thank you for everything, David." When had I become so desperate for her validation that I'd forgotten my own worth? My phone rang. Sarah's number flashed on the screen. For a moment, my old instincts kicked in. The urge to answer immediately, to fix whatever was broken, to be the father she needed even when she didn't want me. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th call, I finally answered. David? Her voice was shaky. Different. David, I need to tell you something. I think you said everything back there, Sarah. No, I didn't. I said terrible things, cruel things, but there's something else. She took a shuddering breath. After you left, I confronted James about the charity. He admitted it. All of it. And then he told me something else. I waited, feeling strangely detached from whatever revelation was coming. He said he only came back into my life because his current wife couldn't have children. He wanted to walk a daughter down the aisle for the photos, for appearances, he said. Her voice cracked. He said I was convenient. The coffee shop around me blurred slightly. Not from tears. I was past that now. But from the sheer cosmic irony of it all. David, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything and I was horrible to you and... Sarah. My voice was calm, almost gentle. Stop. But I need to explain. No, you don't. I looked out the window at people walking by, living their lives, carrying their own stories of love and loss. You made your choice back there. You chose him over me, and you did it in the cruelest way possible. The fact that he turned out to be exactly what I warned you about doesn't change that. David, please, I was confused and hurt and angry. And I was the man who raised you for 15 years. If that wasn't enough to earn me the benefit of the doubt, then we never had what I thought we had. The silence stretched between us across the phone line. I could hear her crying softly, and for a moment my resolve wavered. This was Sarah, my little girl, and she was hurting. But then I remembered her face in that cathedral, the contempt in her voice when she called me just a stepfather, the way she'd chosen to destroy me on the altar of her own embarrassment. I forgive you, Sarah, I said quietly, but I can't forget. And I can't go back to being the man who waits by the phone hoping his daughter might need him. What does that mean? I smiled for the first time all day. It means I'm finally going to live my life for me, not for the approval of someone who sees love as conditional. David, wait. I hung up. Then I turned off the phone. The barista appeared at my table again. Another coffee? Actually, I said, standing up and leaving a 20 on the table. I think I'm done here. Outside, the late afternoon sun was breaking through the Chicago clouds. I had a 9-hour bus ride ahead of me, back to my small town, back to my quiet life. But this time, I wasn't running from anything or toward anyone's approval. I was simply going home. For 15 years, I'd been David Morrison, Sarah's stepfather, a man defined by his relationship to someone else. Walking down that sidewalk, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. I was just David Morrison. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. If this story touched you the way it touched me to live through it, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go.